one is Let Me See Your Transcript, your very favorite history teacher. Please come on in the room. Hey, Hood Therapy. Hey, that sexy toy lady. Hey, Miss Sparkle. Thank you so much for being here on this Tuesday night. How are you doing? Do you have your favorite drink, your favorite snack? Maybe some pen and paper. I don't know. You might want to take notes tonight. But thank you so much for being here with me. Apologies for being late. Just got in. One of my students called me needing some help. And I'm trying to get some of these things here for you so I can have a really good presentation. So glad for you to be here. Please like, share, subscribe. Go grab a friend. Someone that you think should be here, but maybe they're not here. Okay? Come on in the room. Come on in the room. How was y'all's day? Your Monday and Tuesday? Everything go okay? How y'all been feeling? Feeling good? Oh, wait a minute. I think I'm missing one of my where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay, I gotta make sure I got all these pictures and everything set up for you all. Okay. Y'all had a wonderful day. Hey, everybody. Is my volume good? Is everything else good? Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Please hit that like button as you come on in. Hey, Alma. Nice to see you. Hey. Come on in. Like, share, subscribe. I'm so glad that you can make it. Oh, my red lipstick looking real reddish. Okay. I know yesterday was Valentine's Day, but I'm still in the red mood, you know. So, how are y'all doing tonight? Hey, Pillsbury, so glad for you to be here tonight, everybody. How's my lighting and my sound? Because I've been tinkering with that over the weekend, and for some reason, I kept thinking I was getting something wrong. So, how y'all doing? Okay. So tonight, I wanted to do something special. And you're probably thinking like, hey, you're a history teacher. It's Black History Month. How come you haven't been talking about Black history? Well, one, like I said, I teach full time. Plus, I'm an adjunct at Community College, ACC. So that is taking up some of my time and reading their papers. Okay. Also, me giving tests to my high schoolers. But I've also been trying to share other resources because there are other people on YouTube who have been offering some really great resources and giving their expertise on history. So this history teacher has actually been learning some new things myself. Definitely got Trip C's Treehouse. She's done a couple of Black history videos. Also, Black Enigma, BLAQENIGMA. Check him out as well. And there are others that I will also share on my community wall as well. But I wanted to do this one because yesterday it was Valentine's Day. And like toward the end of the night, I was looking at the history of St. Valentine, trying to figure out whether I should post something. I did share with my high school students, but I didn't share with you all and other people. But then I noticed I was on Facebook and I get an alert. And it's from a notification, and it's from a certain doctor. And I went to the link and I clicked on it, and he was saying Frederick Douglass's name. He's giving the history. And he actually reminded me that yesterday is when Frederick Douglass actually celebrates his birthday. He did not know when his birthday was. He just knew it was in February. And so he just chose to do it on February 14th, celebrate it on February 14th every year. And I was like, oh, so it's Valentine's Day and Frederick Douglass's birthday. Then that started having me think, like, wait a minute. Carter G. Woodson proposed before there was Black History Month, it was Negro History Week, and he wanted it to be on the week of Frederick Douglass's birthday and also Abraham Lincoln's birthday. Then I thought about it. I said, wait, President's Day is also, this is why President's Day is also celebrated this week or this upcoming Monday too, because Abraham Lincoln's birthday is the 12th. I'm sorry, I forget what day. George Washington's birthday is this month. I believe this week as well. So that's why we have President's Day on being celebrated Monday. So I was like, oh. And it just made me think I should do the reason why there's a Black History Month. Because I do have students who ask, and I had to explain this to them. I also had to explain it to my friends. I also think other people on YouTube, and everybody just wants to say, oh, why they give us the shortest month? Well, it's more than just like give us the shortest month. I would like to say it's coincidence. It's the shortest month. But there are historical significance of why it is this month. Okay. Okay, yeah, exactly. Google is the number one search engine, and YouTube is the second most frequented search engine. Hey, Karma52, Tristan McGregor, do what thou wilt. Thank you so much for being here. All right. So I'm also going to be dropping some links into the chat so that if after this live you want to know more information, you can actually go there. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started about why we're celebrating Black History Month in February. Okay. So let's start off with this man right here. This man right here. This is Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey, also better known as Frederick Douglass. When he escaped slavery around the 1840s, he changed his name. Okay. Luckily for him, he was a skilled ship worker, so he was able to get clothes that made him look like a sailor. He was in what was called the Upper North. Okay. And so he also could read and write. So he could pretend to be a free colored man at the time, or a free Negro. He was able to go from Baltimore, Maryland, okay, which was the northernmost southern state, ironically, to New York. And then from New York, he was able to marry his wife, okay, Anna Murray. And then they were able to get to, I believe, Boston, Massachusetts. Hey, Jaded Emporia. Okay. All right. Hey, oh son Yemi. Please hit the like button as you come on in. Okay. So he also had two sons who fought in the Civil War, in addition to being an abolitionist, and also he was actually a supporter of the women's rights movement. He was one of the few men who was at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 that actually signed the Declaration of Rights of Sentiments, okay, by, sorry, my dog is wanting my attention. That was signed by, that was written by Elizabeth Cady Stanton, which was modeled after the Declaration of Independence. Okay. So someone's, supposed descendant always fails to mention how their supposed ancestor is not only was an abolitionist and advocating for freedom for African Americans, but was also a women's right advocate. Okay. When he was in Massachusetts, he became a newspaper printer, the North Star, for a while because he was a fugitive slave for a couple of years, or probably a little less than a year. He escaped to, with the help of the abolitionists in the community, he escaped to England for a while because beginning in 1818 or 1811, London became there was no more slavery. They were no longer involved in the slave trade. Later on, I believe through some help with some friends, he was able to purchase his freedom, and so he could be free, and he can go on lectures, he can attend meetings, he can fight for the abolition of African Americans, and also advocate for women's rights, and also be married and raise his family without the fear of being hunted or persecuted. Because in 1850, the United States passed a much stronger fugitive slave law, which gave um gave the South, almost, free reign to get other Northerners who had nothing, really didn't think about slavery, um, make them co-conspirators and like looking for, supposed, escaped slaves in their own neighborhoods, and also the law enforcement in the North and also free territories to hand over slaves or supposedly escaped slaves to the South. So it actually made the South actually made the North more anti-slavery than it was before, but it definitely put his life at risk. So, and Frederick Douglass also during the Civil War had several meetings with this next man, okay, Abraham Lincoln, okay, who is our 16th president of the United States, and he is the first of the Republican Party to become president. He was the second presidential candidate to run for office, but he was the first to actually win the race. He was actually born in Kentucky, which was a slave state, but his family moved to Illinois, where his family stayed. For the most part, they were farmers, and he basically studied reading and writing, began working at an early age, then studied law, got into politics, was actually a member of the Whig Party. Okay. But the Whig Party started to die down, and some of the Whigs, plus some of the Northern Democrats who were anti-slavery, and some of the other parties that were coming up at the same time, also members of the Liberty Party who were very much anti-slavery, all got together in about 1854 and created the Republican Party. This was a hodgepodge of several different parties. They had one thing in common. They did not want slavery to spread to the territories. There were those in the Liberty Party who just did not like slavery. Okay, they wanted to be abolished. There were those in the American Party, okay, who just felt like, hey, slavery is outdated. Okay, the South is backwards in still practicing it. Then there was members of the Free Soil Party who felt like, hey, the new territories should be open to non-slave owners, because slave owners actually had a numerical advantage in the House of Representatives, and also, therefore, most of them also were, which also gave them an edge in electoral votes. Okay, so that means most of the presidents of the United States were slave owners. Okay, the first 4 out of 5 presidents of the United States were slave owners and from Virginia. Okay, John Adams, who was the second president, was from Boston. His son, John Quincy Adams, who was the 6th president, were from Boston. They were non-slave owners. Okay, then you go back to a slave owner with Jackson, who was number 7. So, all right, okay, Jaded. Behave now. All right. Hey, Stephanie Collins, so glad you can be here. How are you doing? Hey, Jaden and Poor, thank you so much for being here. All right. So Abraham Lincoln becomes the president of the United States. He wins the election of 1860. He wins it because, for the most part, it's a four-way race. He's running against three other men. Stephen Douglas was a Northern Democrat who actually helped to divide his own party in half because he wanted a railroad to go through Illinois. And so he proposed a bill called the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which basically nullified the Compromise of 1820, which basically attempted to balance the northern and southern slaves, northern and southern slaves, basically giving those who moved to Kansas and Nebraska the right to determine if they want to have slavery or not. So it actually nullifies the Missouri Compromise. It means, hey, slavery really can go above the southern boundary of Missouri. We don't need to keep, the old plan. Southerners loved it, and he really put that in there that, the people there can decide if they want slavery or not, so that the Southerners in his party would vote for it. Guess what? Illinois never got their railroad through. But he was a Northern Democrat's presidential candidate in 1860. John Bell was another candidate for office. I believe he was from the Constitutional Party that was like, hey, we want to keep the country together. We're going to go by the Constitution. The Federalists disappeared in the War of 1812. And most of their ideas were adopted by the Democratic Republicans. They voted against the War of 1812, and technically it became a victory for the United States, and they went away. Same thing with the Whig Party. They actually voted, they tried not to vote against, some of them were against the Mexican-American War, but they didn't want to come out against it. Thank you so much, Mr. Mad Church Disease. All right. Thank you. And I haven't forgotten about that other video. I did some editing. I just got to do the voiceover. So, yeah, the Kansas-Nebraska Act actually contributed to the Bloody Kansas, because literally Northerners and Southerners came to Kansas and had their own version of the Civil War before the Civil War happened. Yeah. So, all right. So basically, the fourth candidate was a man by the name of John Breckinridge. John Breckinridge happened to be the vice president under James Buchanan, who was the previous president. The Democrats decided not to run James Buchanan because basically even though he was a Northerner, he always appealed in his decisions to Southerners because they had more electoral votes. But unfortunately, a lot of the bills that he signed, Kansas-Nebraska Act, okay, also he's dealing with Harper's Ferry, right, in 1857. He's dealing with Dred Scott versus Sanford, and it's making him look like someone who cannot be reelected. So they choose not to have him run as their candidate in 1860. They choose John Breckinridge. Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Mad Church Disease. Love you so much. Okay, all right. So, yes, in 8th grade, U.S. history. All right. So, I'm hoping I'm asking your question. Okay. So, they choose not to run James Buchanan. They get Vice President John Breckinridge to run. And so what ends up happening is, because even though in the newly Republican Party, Southerners feel like this, after John Brown's raid in 1857, and then also, which actually after John Brown's raid in 1857, the South actually debated about seceding then. But guess who stopped them? A man by the name of Sam Houston. of Texas, who was a senator, U.S. senator representing Texas. It says, hey, this is not what the founding fathers wanted. Some of them were slave owners. Let's have this election. We should not be tearing the country apart. So in 1858, he was able to stop them from wanting to secede. He wasn't able to stop them later on, especially he wasn't able to stop Texas from seceding when he was the governor in 1860. Okay, Texas was the seventh state to secede, even though Texas likes to gloss that over. A lot of times, I got to remind my students, never forget that. We can remember the Alamo, we can remember Goliad, but Texas don't want to remember the fact that we were the seventh state to secede. Okay, we cannot, forget everything. There is chatter about that, and there may or may not be some, just like context clues, inference we can make about that. For the most part, he said that he was engaged, but she died. He always had a picture over the mantle. He never got married to anyone, never had any kids. But if you look at his job that he's always had, he's always been in office for the most part, House of Representatives, then U.S. Senator, then he's Secretary of State, then he's President of the United States. When he gonna have time to find somebody to get married and have kids? But if you look at James K. Polk, who was also president, his wife died one year, and the next year he had a new first lady. So it's like, hey, it's possible. It's possible. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, I gotta look into some more of this. His mother, his first lady, he had a lover on Capitol Hill. What? I'm gonna have to do some more research. Okay. All right. So in this four-way race, because the South is so pro-slavery, they're antsy. By the way, in 1860, Texas has a Texas slave insurrection, which maybe some historians feel like, hey, may not have really been one. This might have been, some slave owners just on edge. In 1860, they're on edge because even though Abraham Lincoln is not anti-slavery, because he does believe slavery was wrong, there are people in his party who are anti-slavery. He never says he will abolish slavery. What he says that puts the South on edge and ensures that they do not vote for him, they don't even put him on the ballot in the South. It was 3 guys' names in the South. Okay? All the other northern states, plus California now is a state, they all voted for Abraham Lincoln. He got the most number of electoral votes. Okay? All right? So what ends up happening is, because they didn't have him as a choice, their votes in the South got split amongst 3 men. None of them got a majority. So that ensured Lincoln would have the majority and he would win the White House. When that happened, the South was like, wait a minute. They had a shock because for the first time in history, a man became president who didn't get any Southern electoral votes. That terrified them because it was like, wait a minute. If the country keeps getting bigger, okay, we're going to become isolated. We won't have the numerical advantage anymore. Okay. If states get to decide if they want to be anti-slavery, this guy says he doesn't want it to spread, and they hate that. Southerners hate saying, "Oh, you don't want slavery to spread." Oh, they hate that. Okay. As much as abolishing it or helping their slaves to escape, they hate that. They felt like, hey, even though he said he don't want it to spread, and Lincoln even said, hey, if you want to have slavery where you are, go ahead. Keep it. I I'm not going to abolish you. I'm not going to touch what system you have in place. But for them, it was like, you still got anti-slavery people in your party. And so for him, so for the first 7, including Texas, South Carolina, which are called the hotheads of the South, was the first to succeed after Lincoln gets the electoral votes. They succeed in December. By March, there are 7. Okay. Lincoln, at that time, they had the inauguration in April. It's not moved until January, until I want to say the 20th century. 20th century. Okay. Hey, Miss T. Pre. And so when he gets into office, okay, he doesn't do anything to the South. He doesn't send troops down there. He doesn't do anything. His first month in office. Okay. First few days. Well, actually, no. March is when they start. He gets into office. In early April, hotheads of South Carolina decide, hey, well, he's not doing anything. And there were a lot of people in his party kept saying, if they want to leave, let them leave. They really felt like that. And probably if the South had not have done something, they just would have been able to leave. Okay. But the hotheads of South Carolina ironically did a John Brown move. They go to the U.S. military arsenal that is in South Carolina with their new Confederate Army and basically take it over. Now, according to some, there was a shot rung out. According to other historians, the shots didn't happen until later. Basically, the South Carolina new Confederate Army goes up to the fort and said, hey, we're here to take over. The men who are there just stepped aside. Either 1, don't want to start a war, or 2, they're from the same community. Okay. Now, when this happens, Lincoln is listening to his cabinet members, who, by the way, are from different men of his party. He was a lot like Washington. He had very smart men, different ideas. He listened to everyone, then he makes a decision. Okay. He decides, Lincoln kind of does a poke move, though. He sends a ship with supplies off the coast of South Carolina, near Fort Sumter, as a supply ship. Reinforcements for the U.S. officers still around in the area, even though they technically kind of just stepped aside. Well, the ship is most likely the ship has guns on it too. Let's not be, naive. Okay. Yes, Jetty Emporium, correct. Okay. So Lincoln tells the ship, hey, because remember he's commander-in-chief of the armed forces, says, hey, be off the coast over there. Across it, you can see the Fort Sumter, which is now headed by, South Carolina Confederate Army. They see a U.S. ship. Fort Sumter, South Carolina Confederates shoot at the ship. Think the ship is supposed to sit there? No, they shoot back. It's called the firing on Fort Sumter. It basically starts the Civil War. Because now South Carolina is losing its battle. It gets back to their general, gets back to the governor. The governor calls out help to the other members of the Confederacy. Because remember, the United States tried to be a Confederacy once upon a time. It didn't work. Because the states had more power than the national government. Same thing happens again in the South. And it's like, the South, why'd you do the same thing that the founding fathers couldn't do? Lasted 11 years. Okay. Hey, still small voice. So basically the South is like, they go, South Carolina asks the other states, like, hey, we need to meet. They done fired on us. The Union, the U.S. has fired on us. Look at all this northern aggression. By the way, that's what the South really die hard pro the South should rise again, and the South, the people who say, "Oh, the Civil War wasn't about slavery; it was about sex," right? Those people always like to say, "War of Northern Aggression." No, they thought it was because they got fired on, but guess what? South Carolina fired first. You expecting a ship full of supplies and weapons not to fire back at you? Come on. So they decide, like, oh, look at this. They're firing on us, right? So when this happens, they're appealing to the other southern states. So 4 other southern states join the original 7. Okay? Hey, defrauding Charlatan. However, 4 southern states decide, you know what? We're not going to come. Okay, we got slavery, but we're not going to join you. Our economy is tied up with the North. They have more people. They have more trade. We get along with them. They ain't never done nothing to us. Yeah, our slaves may, like leave or whatever, but like, no, we don't want them firing on us. We're not gonna we're gonna see how this go. Okay. So basically you have 4 border states side. Hey, we're gonna stay here. We're gonna stay over here. Right? And so Lincoln, in exchange for them not joining the other 11, lets them keep their slaves. So when 2 years, going into the 3rd year of the war, after finally getting some more Union or U.S. victories, because by the way, the South actually had the best generals. A lot of the Union generals, Southern generals, went to West Point together. General Lee and General Grant were classmates. Okay. Both veterans of the Mexican-American War. All right. But the Southerners come from a big military tradition. Many of them, because of the South, because it's agricultural, know how to ride a horse, know how to use a gun, know how to hunt, know where everything in their terrain is. Okay, so they had an advantage. However, going into the 3rd year, Lincoln's draft, bigger population. We got a currency. U.S. got a currency, printing money. Okay. Thank you, Daryl Moore. So glad you're here. You need to check out my friend Daryl Moore, the cigar vlogger. Tomorrow, is it 8:30 p.m. Eastern? Thank you, Daryl Moore. Appreciate it. So they had an advantage. However, Lincoln finally gets Grant after going through several generals who are able to actually keep pushing on into the South until they are going to surrender, not just retreat. Because when you retreat, you go get supplies, regroup, and come back again. All right. So what ends up happening is there are people in Lincoln's party who say, hey, we've been wanting you to abolish slavery. We need you to abolish slavery. And he's like, nah, I'm going to wait. It has to be the right time. The North is not going to be on board for freeing slaves if we're not winning battles. So after Antietam, after Gettysburg, okay, which was 2 of the bloodiest battles, but technical Union victories. He freed slaves January 1st, 1863. Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot to put this in here. This is 8:30 p.m. tomorrow night. Okay, thank you. My friends, 8:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. Okay, here is Frederick Douglass's biography. I believe this is the extended version because the first one does not detail how he escaped, but later on, once slavery is over with, he does write an extended version. Okay, and this is a copy of the Emancipation Proclamation that Lincoln signed. And I always tell my students that Emancipation Proclamation can be seen as a very liberal, progressive document. You're freeing a group of slaves, okay, and giving them their freedom. That's what the anti-slavery abolitionists wanted. But it is also a military decree. Also, it's an executive order. Remember, presidents can write executive orders. They're treated as a force of law. And by the way, there are already generals who were winning in the South. And one of the first things they did, most of them, freed slaves. Now, some of them, just because they wanted to keep the population on their side, there were some who returned slaves. Okay? Remember William T. Sherman, another very capable general. Some people, a lot of Southerners, did not like him because he literally burned everything from Savannah to Atlanta. But guess what? How else are you going to prevent the South from getting help from people in their community that can feed them, clothe them, or hide them? Well, you burn their shit down. You threaten to burn their house. You threaten to take their slaves away. And he was actually where we get the whole idea of 40 acres and a mule from. He actually, I believe it's one of the Sea Islands, I think, in Georgia. He literally took the land away from the slave owners and he divided it amongst the slaves. Gave everybody 40 acres. But unfortunately, when Abraham Lincoln is assassinated and Andrew Johnson takes over, and all these Southerners show up to the White House kissing his ass to get a pardon, they get their stuff back. Some of the 40 acres are returned to them. Okay? But still, a still small voice. It's both. It's both. How else? Well, one, remember, there are people in his party. This is the thing. One thing that his party believed in for different reasons. Slavery should not spread to not spread. Okay? And Lincoln actually did say, hey, if I can keep people enslaved, African Americans enslaved and win the war, I will. If I can free them and win the war, he does. But remember, he has these liberals, okay, in his party. Yes, there were liberals in the Republican Party at one time, okay, who are pressing him about slavery. This man right here is showing up to the White House on several occasions and saying, I need you to abolish slavery. I need you to let African American soldiers fight in the war. They need to be paid the same amount of money as the white soldiers. He has two sons fighting, 54th Massachusetts. By the way, there was another all-black regiment who fought in the war. They were the South Carolina Volunteers, headed by an abolitionist. I can't think of the man's name. He has a really long name. I read one of his books called Black Rebellion. Someone remind me to find it and put it in the chat, okay? But also, Harriet Tubman, abolitionist, conductor on an Underground Railroad. She's a spy for the North, okay? Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, abolitionist. She's meeting with Lincoln. So there are abolitionists telling him, like, hey, when you going to free the slaves? When you gonna free him? And he's like, I just got to wait the right time. We need some victories. Okay. All right. And when it finally does, he's like, okay, I know what to do. This is the third year of the war. You got slaves who are in the South leaving plantations, leaving farms, because they realize, hey, the guys in the blue uniforms are fighting the guys in the gray uniforms who keep us enslaved. One of the first people to leave the plantations weren't field slaves, they were house slaves. Let me say that one more time. People in the back. Thank you. That's his name. Thank you. Thomas Wentworth Higginson wrote Black Rebellion and led the 54th. Read the South Carolina Volunteers. The biggest difference was the South Carolina Volunteers were mostly former slaves or fugitive slaves, and the 54 Massachusetts was really, even though the movie makes it different, they're really mostly free black men. She was racist. If you look at some of her characters in her book, yeah. But her book actually is one of the contributors to the end, to the Civil War, and was one of the best-selling anti-slavery novels. You can even say propaganda that actually helped the anti-slavery, anti-abolitionist movement. So, okay, let me say the Republicans were liberal then is virtually conservatives. No, it's not. This is the thing, Jada and Poor, you have to understand. The Republicans of the 1850s are not the Republicans of today. Totally different. Initially, Democrats were the conservative ones, and Republicans were the liberal ones. But when the liberal Republicans or the radical Republicans kind of like died off and were replaced by these business-minded Republicans, they were less worried about progressive ideas until you get like Theodore Roosevelt. And for the most part, African Americans were still, up until I would say right before FDR, were still solidly voting Republican, because for them it was like, hey, Lincoln was a Republican. He helped free slaves, so we're going to vote for him. But then when it was like the Great Depression and they were already in bad off, but now you were really, really bad off, and now, FDR, his wife, is a friend of, other African Americans, and they're put in charge of programs to help Black people, and the Black people are looking at this and they're like, wait a minute, okay, what these Republicans doing again? Okay, and they start to switch, and the big switch doesn't come until the 60s. And by that time, what ends up happening is it's like what happened in the 1850s. You have Northern Democrats, you got Southern Democrats. Same thing happens again in the 1950s and 60s. The Northern Democrats, liberal, progressive, thinking segregation is outdated, and it's wrong. Southern Democrats like, no, this is our way of life. Y'all just can't come down here and tell our Negroes what to do. That's them. And then you begin to have this switch. And then what ends up happening over time, what was called Blue Dog Democrats, who were consistently conservative, over time, they're replaced with red Republicans. That's what happens. Black Republicans of then would be considered liberal now. No, Northerners were not. They just tolerated They tolerated Southern slavery because they had the electoral votes. That's why. Yeah. Let me see. Okay, maybe I'm. You're part of Charlton. What are you talking about? What are y'all talking about? Okay. Okay, I am so confused. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm getting confused. I'm okay. Yeah, I mean, there are some that like, oh, I'm voting Democrat. I don't like the Republicans. Da, da, da. Yeah, there were. We. I mean, we could have a whole nother conversation on this. Okay. Okay. All right. Come back though. Maybe they can have that conversation for another time. Okay. So basically, these were pro-slavery had investments. So, yes, because if you think about it, a lot of the insurances on slaves, a lot of the cotton gins, cotton gin repairs, banks, people borrowed money for. Southerners did, planters especially, some farmers, were northern ones. Railroads, thinking of cotton from the south to the north. Okay, there were a few cotton mills in the South, but they didn't want to take away agricultural land to build more factories. So a lot of them were up north. Hey, Mad Church Disease, welcome back. So yes, there were Northerners who were complicit, but there are other groups of Northerners who are very much anti-slavery and abolitionists. Okay. Yes, they definitely so. Oh, okay. Cool. All right. Me too, Tristan. Me too. The Lehman Brothers. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Jaded. Okay. So welcome back, Matt Charles Disease. So basically, Lincoln is freeing their slaves one because the abolitionist party is like, hey, you that free slaves, free the slaves. Okay. Freddie Douglass showing up, Harriet Tubman showing up, Eric Beecher Stowe showing up. Hey, free the slaves, free the slaves. Okay. Then he frees them, but it's also like I said, yes, it's for humanitarian reasons. Yes, it's the right thing to do, but it's also a war strategy. Emancipation Proclamation, not only a humanitarian document, it is an executive order. It is a military executive order. You are trying to undermine your enemy. What better way to undermine the South is to free their slaves? If you look, let me find it for y'all. Just like took a class in undergrad. I believe this is the Confederate States. This is the Confederate States of America's. Let me see. Declaration of Independence, and I'm going to show you it. I'm going to show you this, and this is what a really great professor. I thought he was going to be very, very conservative because he had this really thick drawl, but he told it like it was. He told it like it was. Here is it. Where is it? Okay. All right. So let me take down Lincoln's picture. Let me see, let y'all see it. Okay. So this is the first line of the Declaration of Independence of the 11 states that seceded from the United States. Okay. Wait, is this? Hold on. Okay, I guess they all had their own. Wait, maybe it's the Constitution. Okay, so this is their Constitution. Can y'all see this? Okay. All right. Okay. Mm, mm, mm. Okay. Maybe it was a declaration, their Declaration of Independence. Okay. I was trying to figure. Okay, sorry, y'all. I haven't seen this. Okay. I think it was, I'm sorry, I think I was right the first time. Oh, the Constitution is breeze? Mm. Okay, let me go back. Okay, let's look at South Carolina. I think the others also modeled themselves after South Carolina. So when they say, "Oh, the southern states didn't," uh, they didn't abolish. They didn't secede because of slavery. You're like, wait a minute, yeah. So this is, we're going to take a look at South Carolina because they're the hotheads and everybody modeled theirs after each other. Okay. So it says the people of the state of South Carolina declared that the frequent violations of the Constitution of the United States by the federal government and its encroachment upon the reserved rights of the states fully justified this state in them withdrawing from the federal union. But in deference to the opinions and wishes of the other slave-holding states, she forbade their time to exercise this right. Since that time, these encroachments have continued to decrease, and further forbearance ceases to be a virtue. Okay? They are already telling you what is going on. Their rights to be a slaveholding state is being interfered. Okay? Okay? And hold on. There's something else. Where is it? Wait, it was another part too. Mm. Oh, and this is what it says here at the bottom. On the 4th day of March next, this party will take possession of the government. He's talking about the Republican Party. It has announced the South should be excluded from the common territory. They did not say that. All right. That the judicial tribunals shall be made sectional and that a war must be waged against slavery until it shall cease throughout the United States. Lincoln never said that. He said it wouldn't spread. The South could keep their slaves. This wasn't going to spread. But Southerners, they don't want nobody stopping them from being slave owners. They want it to spread. Oh, and then I looked up here. Here they say up here. A geographical line has been drawn across the Union, and all the states north of that line have united in the election of a man to the high office of President of the United States whose opinions and purposes are hostile to slavery. He is to be in trust with the administration of the common government, that because he has declared that the government cannot endure permanently half slave, half free. Now, he did say that part, but look how they're interpreting it. That the public mind must rest in the belief that slavery is in the course of ultimate extinction. Okay? So when Southerners tell you that, the reason for the Civil War happened is because of states' right. Yeah, the states' right to have a slave. Pull up South Carolina and show them that. Like, what's it say? Slave? They upset about slavery? Yes, it's about slavery. Hey, Mikey. Please hit the like button. I have 24. You should have 24. You liking this? Yes, it's not always an indicator, but I was at Texas A&M, Stephanie, and the professor walked in with jeans, an old blue shirt, cowboy boots, and a hat. And when he opened his mouth, he sounded like a deeper version of Matthew McConaughey's accent and slower. Okay? All right, just let you know. Oh, erroneous religious beliefs, right? Because remember, Southerners who were slave owners, their interpretation of the Bible, servants obey your masters. All right. Okay. All right. So, okay. So he basically says in the Emancipation Proclamation, okay, here it is again, that all states, if you read it, be carefully. Hey, Ms. Furlow Speaks, thank you for coming. He says, all states, all slaves that are in the states of rebellion. Remember I said 4 slave states chose to stay. They get to keep their slaves. Also, you have to understand it's a strategic reason for them letting those states keep their slaves. Because look, Washington, D.C. is next to Virginia and Maryland, and I think it was Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky's a slave state. If Kentucky is not allowed to keep their slaves, they're going to join the Confederacy, and Washington, D.C. is going to be surrounded by slave owners, which is the seat of government. Okay? When the Battle of Antietam and Maryland, which is the northernmost slave state, is defeated, they are allowed to keep their slaves as long as they do not take up any more arms against the Union. Because the United States would be, the seat of government would be in the middle. So some things are to it, or military advantage, okay? Yes, it did not Those 4 states did not. Okay. Tristan, not all Southern blacks are not liberal. Not all of them conservative, but especially the older generation, very conservative on things. Yeah, the Church of Mike Zayden resists because, yeah, Southern Baptist Convention resisted. Southern Baptist Convention was pro-slavery, and the Baptist uh, Northern were not. Same thing happened in the United Methodist Church. The United Methodist Church at one time split because of that, but then later on they came back together. That's why they called the United Methodist Church. Okay. All right. So he puts African Americans who are in the state of rebellion. Remember, total of 15 slave states. 11 of them are in the state of rebellion. That's like 2 million black people set free January 1st, 1863. And some were already setting themselves free by running towards Union lines or running away where their masters, because the masters were either off fighting the war, everybody left behind, or women and children, or those planters or farmers who can pay for a substitute. Okay. So the significance of this is, but in the next, especially what the radical Republicans are going to do after, Lincoln is assassinated and they take Reconstruction away from Andrew Johnson, they institute a lot of radical reforms. Okay, we're going to make not only the 11 states, the whole country, have to ratify the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. We're going to give them citizenship, and then we're going to give the black men the right to vote. 3 amendments that hadn't been passed took 80 years to do it. Okay? The next amendment won't be passed until the 1910s. Okay? With all this being said, what Lincoln did, we might say, oh, okay, yeah, it was military strategy. He did it nonetheless. He was president at the time. He signed the paper. So for a lot of African Americans after the war, he has a lot of respect and admiration. So does this man here, who met with him, whose sons fought in the Civil War, who was still one of the most liberal Republicans before his death in 1895, even though his contemporaries, most of them had died, because there was a new generation of Republicans, business-minded, who were now in charge. Okay? And so what ends up happening is, with all that being said, this man right here, name of Carter G. Woodson, the fourth son of fourth son of enslaved people or slaves. Later goes to work, almost 20 years old, goes to high school, graduates in 2 years, goes to college, gets a bachelor, a master's, and guess what? Gets his doctorate from Harvard. The first being W.E.B. Du Bois. The second is him. He starts teaching. And Dr. Woodson realizes, like, hey, nobody's teaching anything about, at the time they use the word Negroes. Okay? Negroes. No one's talking about the contributions that Negroes, or today we say African Americans, contributed to the United States. And by the way, Dr. Woodson was born during Reconstruction, 1875. His family was born in Virginia, so he's raised in the South. Okay, his middle name is Godwin. Okay, so Dr. Woodson actually founds an organization that studies African American history and culture. Okay. Today it's called the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, Incorporated. At the time, in 1915, it was called the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. The very first meeting of this organization met in his home in Washington, D.C., which currently today is a National Historic Site. It is, unfortunately, because of COVID, it is temporarily closed. Woodson taught both public and at college. He trained researchers and staff members, wrote books and articles. He was actually the dean of the School of Liberal Arts and head of the graduate faculty at Howard University. He was also the dean at West Virginia Collegiate Institute, which is now known as West Virginia State University. He retired in teaching in 1922 and devoted his full time to his the Association of American Life and History, researching, grooming young scholars for being historians. Okay. I don't know if you guys knew this. Those of you who've been to college, there's a publication called the Journal on Negro History. He's the one that started that publication. And the Negro History Bulletin in 1937. Okay. He also started the Associated Publishers, a publishing company that works on companies would not, support the writings of Black scholars and women of African American and African diaspora descent. Okay. For all of these accomplishments, Dr. Woodson is called the father of Black history. Okay. Or at the time, he was called the father of Negro history. Now, one of his most famous books is called The Soul of Black Folks, which I have to say, shame on me. I should have read it already, but I have not. And it's on my list. Okay. All right. So, where is that? Let me find it. Okay. Okay. He also worked with Mary McLeod Bethune, who was the founder of Bethune-Cookman College. During his lifetime, there were other presidents of his association, one of them being her. And he also mentored other historians. Probably one of the most in our time that we know about is John Hope Franklin, who writes a lot about African American history. He was in a very good documentary about Thomas Jefferson. He's in John Hope Franklin's in Ken Burns' documentary about Thomas Jefferson. So I wanted to show you Okay. I want to put this in the chat so that you all can see. Okay. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay. So, um, like Du Bois, Woodson believed that young African Americans in the early 20th century were not being taught enough of their own heritage and the achievements of their ancestors. To get his message out, Woodson first turned to his fraternity, Omega Psi Phi. Oh, he's a cute dog. Okay, I'm sorry. Which created Negro History Week and Literature Week in 1924. But Woodson wanted a wider celebration, and he decided that ASLNH, his organization, should take on the task itself. In February 1926, Woodson sent out a press release announcing the first Negro History Week, which is this week. Okay. He chose February because the month contained the birthdays of both Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, two prominent men whose historic achievements of African Americans already celebrated. Okay, remember, since slavery was over with, a lot of people were having, actually, African Americans not only were celebrating Douglass's birthday, also Lincoln's birthday. They were the first to have Memorial Day celebration of soldiers, black and white soldiers. So there will be no Memorial Day without black people. Just letting y'all know. All right? Just letting y'all know. Okay. Lincoln's birthday is February 12th. Douglas's birthday, which he had known, he marked it on February 14th. Okay. As schools and other organizations across the country quickly embraced Woodson's initiative, he and his colleagues struggled to meet the demand for course materials and other resources. The ASLNH formed branches all over the country, though its national headquarters remained centered in Woodson's house in Washington, D.C. Okay. So these are also some books, like I said. Um, you know what? I misspoke earlier. I said that Carter G. Woodson wrote The Souls of Black Folk. I believe I Hold on. I was wrong. I apologize. See, this is why I need to read these books. Maybe, you know what? Y'all remind me I need to do that spring break. The Souls of Black Folk was written by W.E.B. Du Bois. Okay, I'm sorry, Du Bois, excuse me. Um, one of the most famous books written by Dr. Carter G. Woodson is The Miseducation of the Negro. Okay. All right. He also wrote A Century of Negro Migration, The History of the Negro Church, The Negro in Our History. So not only did, like I said, to me, I feel like in a way he probably also contributed. Oh, okay, cool. Oh, you read some of his writings, Stephanie? Which one did you read? Which one should I read first, Stephanie? I know some people gonna get mad. I ask you that, but I don't care. Okay. But I feel like he's also adding to the profession. Like he went to school to be a historian, and the thing was like, hey, I want to make sure that Black people are being taught. And he's helping to train other historians who write books that are used in classrooms. Just saying. Oh, the miseducation of the Negro. By the way, if you notice, what is the name of Lauryn Hill's album that won the 6 Grammys? The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. See? Dr. Woodson still has an influence. Thank you for getting that, Vesper. All right. So basically, like I said before, the reason why Black History Month is in February is not because they gave us the shortest month. This is the week Abraham Lincoln's birthday, February 12th. Frederick Douglass's birthday, February 14th. It started out as Negro History Week. Okay. And then it evolved into Black History Month. And then now there are also other months that are highlighting the contribution of other Americans. Now, should we be reading about the contributions of African Americans every day? Sure. But did you really think in 1920 to 1915 they was going to give us a whole month when we wasn't even mentioned in the first place in the curriculum or in the book? I mean, there are books in the 1950s and 60s down south that was still saying that slaves were happy, and then the Northerners came down and freed them. Then the former slaves became politicians for like 10, 15 years, but they were awful at it, and they did push poor jobs that they were removed from office. I mean, seriously, the South took it literally. Once the war was over with, they told their story. They didn't tell the real story. So the contributions of Dr. Woodson really is important, because that type of thing will probably still be going on for a lot farther. Correct. D.W. Griffiths, among even you can look at Gone with the Wind. Even though I read Gone with the Wind, saw the movie, those two books very much support lost cause ideology. We lost the war because we didn't have enough men and weapons. We wasn't wrong for fighting it or seceding. Look at the good old days when our slaves was happy. They wasn't happy. You beat on me, I'm gonna act happy too. Come on now. So, all right. What was the other thing I wanted to say? Okay. Okay, as it says, early as the 1940s, there were efforts to expand Negro History Week into a longer event. The shift had already begun by locations in the 1950s. Remember, African Americans are contributing heroes from World War II. They're coming back home. Okay, some of them are starting civil rights groups, trying to move into different neighborhoods. Okay. Unfortunately, Woodson would not be able to see, I guess you'd say, the evolution from Negro History Week to a full-fledged month because he died in 1950 of a heart attack in his home. However, because of the civil rights movement and the Black Power movements in the 1960s, more and more young African Americans were pushing for Black history classes and the study of Black history at universities, not only in the South, but also on the West Coast, the East Coast, and up north. The ASLNLH later became the Associated for the Study of African American History. And in 1976, during the Carter administration, on the 50th anniversary of the first Negro History Week, the association officially made the shift to Black History Month. Okay, so basically in four years, it's going to be 100 years. I'm sorry, it wasn't Carter. It was Gerald Ford. Since then, every U.S. president has issued a proclamation honoring the spirit of Black History Month. Gerald Ford began the tradition in 1976. Ronald Reagan, first Black History Month proclamation, stated that understanding the history of Black Americans is the key to understanding the strength of our nation. Wow. In 2016, President Barack Obama made his last proclamation on Whitson's initiative, now recognized as one of the nation's oldest organized celebrations of history. As we mark the 40th year of National African American History Month, let us reflect on the sacrifices and contributions made by generations of African Americans, and let us resolve to continue our march toward a day when every person knows the unalienable rights to liberty, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay. All right. And in my community, there is a school named after him. When I was in New York, there's also a school. I believe there's also a street named after him. And it's probably some in Chicago too, because where he got his undergrads, bachelor's and master, I believe was in Chicago. Hey, Dara, you still here? I didn't know Carter G. Woodson was your fraternity brother. I didn't know that. But you know what? I don't see any mention of any children or getting married. Let me see. I don't see any children. He has a brother named Robert Henry. Okay. His father was a Civil War veteran, and his parents did not. He was the fourth of 9 children. I don't see anything about um hmm. He was 74 years old when he died in 1950. Hmm. I guess he was never married or had any children. I wonder if there are any descendants still living. Hmm. I wonder. May have to look into that. And I'm probably Howard University probably has a building named after if he was dean there. Did y'all know Howard University? Sorry, I'm on a tangent. Did y'all know that hey YM social media? Oh, okay. His statue is down the street from my house. Oh, cool. That's cool. No facial hair either. Well, you have to also understand he was also living in a different time. I don't think a lot of men were doing facial hair. I think even Dubois just had like, you know, I'm trying to think of other people during that time period. If you think about, got me thinking now. All right. Do y'all have any questions about Dr. Carter G. Woodson, father of African American history, Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass? Thank you, YM Social Media. You okay, Jaded and Poor? Are you gonna be all right? No, but was it just a mustache and a goatee? But it wasn't like a beard. I don't remember him having a beard. Well, I want to thank everyone tonight for coming by to support my friends Mad Church Disease and Daryl Moore, Stephanie Collins, YM Social Media, Jaded Empora, Miss Farlow Speaks, Tristan McGregor, Deftest Karma, Karma 52, Mikey XF23, Tristan McGregor, The Fraud and Charlatans, Booka Book. Trying to think. Still Small Voice, Vester Martini, Miss T Pre. Trying to think. Carmen 52, Miss Sparkle. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the super chat, Mad Church Disease. Thank you for being in support. And if you like the content that you heard tonight, please support the Sisters Cash App. Okay. Also, please like, comment, and share this live. Also, please put a comment and let me know any of the information about the subject you would like to know. Also, what other, I'm thinking about starting this as a series, like history of, like this history of Black History Month. I should have started with the history of Martin Luther King Day, but I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and do one for that. But I was thinking like maybe once every month I'll do like a history of like the event or the month or the holiday. But I was also thinking about doing history of certain people in pop culture as well. I was thinking about doing a history of Kodak Black. I know it's not. He's just a very interesting person. Stephanie Collins, thank you so much. The haters gonna hate, but thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really do. So, but yeah, let me know what you would like me to do next. Oh, also, if there's anyone who knows another person that I should tackle also for my African American Greed series, because I've done 12 episodes. I want to get up to 20. I just feel like Kodak Black, it's like he's so interesting, but at the same time, it's like, is he a cautionary tale? What can we learn from the history of Kodak Black? Like, I'm glad he only got a flesh wound the other day. So, all right, y'all. If y'all don't have any more, thank you so much for being here tonight with me. Thank you for the 27 people. Okay. That came by tonight. I really appreciate you. Those of you going to watch the replay, thank you so much for watching. And please come back again next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Also, join me tomorrow on my friend Daryl Moore's page at 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay, thank you so much. Thank y'all for being here. All right. Right now, I'm going to go head over to KKC because tonight is the versus Anthony Hamilton versus Music Soul Child. And I am Team Anthony Hamilton. Okay, this is the reason why I'm Team Anthony Hamilton. Okay. Unfortunately, I have never been to a concert of Anthony Hamilton, But I have been to a concert of Music Soul Child. I do love Music Soul Child. He does have more danceable R&B songs. But what really makes me not be on his team, and I hope he's not gonna do this tonight, but I got a feeling he gonna do it. He likes to give out these long monologues, I guess stories or something, in between each song. And it be dragging on the show. And I'm just like, man, just sing. Me and my best friend still talk about this to this day. This month. When I told her this verse was to happen, she was like, "Oh, Music Soul Child." I was like, "Yeah, I know." So I love Music Soul Child, but I'm Team Anthony Hamilton. Okay. All right. Talk to y'all later. See y'all in the chats. Bye.